This time we have Queen Jack, pretty playable hand. Obviously we're going to play it because we're analyzing this. So let's just launch it and see what it brings us again. Obviously an easy open, not much to discuss or comment here. We get a flat from the bottom and the blinds folds. We have a flop and Courtney decides to bet, which I think is perfectly fine. I do think that this is one of the best hands you could choose to bluff with. Even though many players miss this and just give up, it's not necessarily the right play. Obviously, you're not going to have a huge fold equity on the flop right now because your opponent has position and is likely to float a lot of hands, and the flop could reasonably hit his calling range as well. However, what this hand brings is a number of opportunities to take the pot down on later streets. You can barrel off as a bluff any club, and if not make him fall on the river, then put a ton of pressure free barreling as well. Moreover, you can improve to straight draws. You can even obviously improve your hand as well by hitting queen or a jack. So you are bluffing, but you really need to take in consideration that you should be prepared to go with this hand and run that big bluff barreling multiple streets if you get favorable run out. So for that reason, you have a great hand, you have runner flush draws, you have straight runner straight draws, and so on. So you have a number of ways to improve, as we said, thus making a bet on the flop is kind of mandatory and it's not even close. Our opponent calls, it's not a bad deal for us. We get a pretty good turn, we get a flush draw, a third nut flush draw here, we get an open-ender, still have two overcards and can put a ton of pressure. Obviously we're going to have a lot of fold equity here as well. Well, it's not like you're going to make him fold majority of the time, he's still going to end up calling, but what hands he could call you on the river with when you free barrel this board? Well, I would definitely say not much. Firstly, you block a lot of combos of the flush draws that he could have, having queen of clubs yourself. So that makes it even much harder for him to have a justifiable, very strong hand where he could be calling free streets. Obviously, he could have something like 8-7 suited here, which he called pre-flop, instead of free betting it. But most of the time, those hands go in players' free bet ranges. But obviously, your opponent can have that. We cannot reelect this possibility. He could have sets, two pairs, and so on. But he does have a lot of floats. He does have a lot of 9x hands, which he has no way to call free streets with. And you're going to yield enough fold equity to justify these bluffs. Moreover, as we said before, you have a great hand which you can improve on for future street on the river. So betting this is again no-brainer. I love to see this bet from Courtney and is absolutely the right thing to do. Now we see the river and it is a jack. Courtney decides to check, which I totally agree with. I do not think you can get much valor in this spot. Your hand is pretty weak, to be honest, but most importantly, by betting it, you're basically turning your hand into a bluff, which is obviously a bad thing when you have a reasonably good showdown hand. So I do think betting here would definitely be a mistake, so you decide to check and your opponent bets. Now we have a pretty tough spot here in my opinion. Well, maybe it's not so tough, but I do think that many people tend to automatically call this without putting your opponent on a range, and I do think this could be a mistake. Well, firstly, your opponent is never going to bet a weaker hand for valor. He's never going to bet 9x, he's not even going to bet like 10x if he had something like 10-8 suited or 10-7 suited and he hit that 10 on the turn. He's just going to take this hand to showdown. He does not have any jack x in his range, which you could beat, I guess. Again, very few random combos, but most of the time those combos could be something like, let's say, jack 8 of diamonds, the hand that he could float on the flop because of his runner draws, but when the jack on the river is a jack of diamond, he just don't have any combos like that. He could have like ace-jack with ace of club, but you're not winning against that hand as well. So it makes it very slim to call and bluff catch this. Apart from that, he does have pretty reasonable value range. He has some flushes, he has 2 pairs, sets, and most importantly, he's going to be betting all of that as well. So I do think, taking all his range in consideration, it is actually a pretty easy fold on the river. I do not see people bluffing here just because, as we said, he does not have many bluff combos. Like, what draws just drastically miss here that he could turn into a bluff? Well, not many for sure. Obviously, occasionally, some good players will turn like 9x hands into a bluff, but that happens just too rarely to justify this call. So I do think by folding here, in the long run, you would save a lot of money, and this is definitely the right play to do. Couldn't decide to call and see a 2-pair hand. As we said, this is perfectly acceptable thing to see, because most of the time your opponent is not going to value bet any weaker hand than yours, and he don't have many bluffs. So do not bluff catch just because you hit the hand. It's not the way to go. Put your opponent on a range, and if you see that you are not beating anything, making these folds is essential. It is critical part, I would say even a critical part, to be able to let down these middle strength hands in MTTs. Otherwise, you're going to lose quite significant part of your stack if you will be chasing this all the time and calling your opponents down where they are not very likely to bluff. So I think this is a good example. I hope you like it. I most importantly hope you will implement this in your game and improve it. So thanks for watching it. Visit my channel, subscribe for more videos, and talk to you soon, guys.